this morning. And I'm just going to share a couple more things about Dr. Robinson. I call her Dr. She hates that. Teresa Robinson. I'm just impressed she's a doctor. She is from the Florida area, from the Orlando area. And she got her BA from Howard University and then went to Cornell for both her master's and her doctoral studies. And she's worked with a number of Fortune 500 companies, such as Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, Walt Disney, GE, Dell. Very, very impressive from my point of view. So I'm very pleased and very excited to have her here, and I'm very much looking forward to sitting through this presentation. So please give another warm welcome for Dr. Teresa Robinson.
All right. Woo. All right. We didn't talk about dancing in my last session, but that counts too as moving, right? I was wondering if I could get some theme music, and they said, okay, you're taking it a little bit too far. Show of hands, how many people were in the last session? Wow! And the fact that you came in here, that's a good sign. Because if I had asked the question, how many people were in that last session? If nobody had raised their hand, I would have been like, How many people got some useful information, gave you something to think about last session? All right. So I'm hoping that you realize that that session was designed to raise your awareness and to get you to thinking. This session is a little bit more hands-on, and it is going to require more of you, which means I will be asking for a commitment before you leave the room at 11:30. Now, you know what that stereotype is. Beware of any woman who's asking for a commitment. We don't take no for an answer, and I can get very persistent. And I say that in a joking way, but I'm also kind of serious, because you know what? The bottom line is there has just been so much happening in the world for us to start letting us fall through the cracks. And based on a lot of the work that I do, I'm involved in working with dietitians and exercise physiologists that often have to deliver some really bad news to people. We've had to deliver to people news that, you know what, you've got diabetes, you need to see your doctor right away, or you're a heart attack about to happen. So in all seriousness, the health and wellness as the foundation for everything that we do as it relates to performance is really, really huge. And I'm hoping that if you didn't view it as high of a priority, I'm hoping that you will start to view it as high of a priority after today. So more for you to think about, but also this session is designed to get you to do. You notice this is about vision casting. This is about action planning. So if you're sitting in this room hoping to be entertained for the next hour and a half and not have to do anything, you're in for a surprise. You're in for a surprise. There are a lot of people that say that, you know what, based on something that you said, it actually ended up being life-changing for me. And we could only aspire to have that happen. And I'm hoping that for everybody in this room, for the one thing that I'll ask you to commit to doing differently, that one thing will be the tipping point to any kind of change. So let's address the whole vision casting first and foremost, and why something like that is so important. It's one thing for you to say, you know what, I want to get more serious about taking care of me. I want to get some more information around that and what I could do. That's one thing to be thinking that, but until you make that vision a reality and really articulate it as something real, there's still the danger that it might fall off the radar screen. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want you to get back into your work areas or get back home with your family and friends and say to them, wow, you know what? I just came back from that NACD conference. For those of you in my session, you'll understand. The rest of you, just bear with me. I just came back from that NACD conference and that NASJA conference. And you know what? I learned some really cool stuff. And maybe for a week or two, you decide to do some things differently. But then after that week or two, you decide, okay, this is kind of hard. There's still those pressures. There's still all those demands. And then you let things just fizzle out. Please do not let it fizzle out. There's too much at stake. So, vision casting up first. So, when we start thinking about vision casting, One of the best ways to demonstrate why it is so critical is for you to actually demonstrate it. So I am walking down the aisle in search of a volunteer. And I met someone this morning that really reminded me again of just the value of laughter. Now, usually when I'm seeking volunteers, I do look for people that do avoid eye contact. But in this case, you all don't have to worry about it because I had already spotted my volunteer. Whether she realized it or not, she volunteered this morning. Lasagna, come join me up front. Can we give her some encouragement? All right. Woo, yeah. All right. I promise you I will not embarrass you, because I know typically when somebody calls you up to the front, the first thing you're thinking is, oh no, what am I going to have to do? First of all, look at the folks around, all right? And because I want you to feel comfortable, can you all just send some nice, warm, loving energy her way? Nod, wave, smile. See, they're all rooting for you. Yeah. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give Lasagna my quarter. Okay? And I'm going to ask you to hold on to my quarter. And I'm going to stand over here out of the way, and I'm going to ask you to do just one thing with my quarter. And that's my lucky quarter, by the way. Okay, so it's a lucky quarter. So I'm going to stand over here, and I'm going to, just one thing I'm going to ask you to do with that, all right? I want you to take that quarter, and I want you to hit that target over there. Did you hear what she said? She said, hit what target? You're done. That's it. Yeah. Whoa, and I love it. You're done. Yeah. She sounds disappointed. She said, what target? And that's really the point of vision casting, because guess what? If I had said to her that the target is right behind you, close to this microphone, she would have turned her body away from me and she would have aimed for that target. That's what vision, mission, and goals are about. Being able to pinpoint something, being able to identify it. Because if I had told her that that's where the target was, guess what she would have done? She would have turned her body away from me. She would have gotten focused on that target, and she would have aimed for it, and all of her energy and all of her effort would have been behind this quarter. She would have released it to hit the target. That's what vision casting is about. When I can identify it and see it and also articulate it, guess what? That actually increases my chances of being on that path to hit that target. So if you're wanting to do anything around self-care, the first thing you need to be thinking about is, how am I defining that? Am I going to set some concrete goals for myself? Or is it just going to be this fluffy thing that sits over here? So that's going to be key. You identifying the target for you. So it also will point back to having a general frame of reference for a lot of what we talked about this morning. And for those of you that weren't in that session, we'll do a deeper dive and a quick review. But it's going to be you pinpointing what's right for you at this point in your life as it relates to your professional life, but also your personal. Because I don't want this to be just about the work, but certainly having you to look at it from a holistic perspective. So I'm going to take that lucky quarter, and I'm actually going to give it to you, because I also like to always make the point that it pays to volunteer. So you get to keep that as a memento of our time. All right. All right. So I've got 4 stages of sustainable growth and change that I want to introduce this group to. There are 4 stages. And the reason why I make a point of saying sustainable growth and change is because, like I said, I don't want this to be something that you leave here and you're just excited about it because, you went to these sessions and they talked and focused on self-care. She talked about brain health. She talked about this. She talked about that. You know what? I'm really excited about doing some stuff and making some changes. And then you get excited and it lasts for a little while. Sustainable means it's not a flavor of the month. Sustainable means it's not a diet. Sustainable means it's not a gimmick. Sustainable means it's practical, it's actionable, and it represents a lifestyle change that I am wanting and needing to make because I know it will benefit my work performance as well as my health and happiness. How many people in here think they know what the 4 stages are? Nobody in this room? Have no idea. Any idea what the 4 stages are? Sustainable growth and change. And we might want to start using the microphones. I don't know. Okay. I will introduce my husband to the group. This is Mark. Okay. Okay. All right. So just so we can make sure we can, because we're going to do a lot more chatting in this group. But if you feel like you can project and don't need the microphone, go at it. All right. She's saying that one of those would be for you, reducing stress. Okay, that's her guess. What about you? Okay.
Creating a habit.
Creating a habit. All right. She says that is probably one of the stages. Getting the rest that we need. Finding joy. Oh. Creating a vision. Pre-contemplation, when you're thinking about what changes you want to make. Any other guesses as to what do you think comprises the 4 stages? Focus. Setting a goal. Training. Ooh, that's a short group. Stress management. You know what's nice about getting the input from the group is because I've got 4 stages up here, and what you said may not necessarily fall on that list, but think about everything that you just heard. Do you think everything that you just heard will also be critical to what those 4 stages are? You bet. So, drum roll, please. All right. Information. That kind of threw you for a loop, right? What? Information? Let me explain. The first stage is raising your awareness around something. So that would be information, knowledge, or awareness. That would be the first stage. That stage, however, in isolation does not work. Case in point, for those of you that were in my last session, I gave you a lot of information as it relates to how those 6 strategies points back to brain health and performance. That was information. Granted, it may have been interesting. It may have represented something that you did not know previously, but information in and of itself has never been enough to motivate most of us to change, has it? No, think about it. There has been so much research out there that's readily available on everything that I already talked about. There's a lot of research already out there. We've never been at a lack for that information. So why are we becoming more and more stressed out, more and more unfit, more and more unhealthy, and more miserable? We've got all this information, so it should be doing something, right? No. Not by itself, right? Not by itself. So that would lead me to stage 2. Now, stage 2 actually points back to a comment, I believe 2 comments that came from the group. Those individuals keyed into stage 2. They didn't phrase it the way that you'll see it phrased up here, but they keyed right in on it. Information always has to be married up with something else so that it has meaning. So think about what you can marry up with information that would propel you to make some changes. What would that something have to be? A compelling why. You got to have a reason for doing it. Those 2 together, that's what's going to give what you decide to do. That's what's going to give it staying power. So let's explore this whole idea. And you probably already know the answer to this, but I love to have fun, especially when I'm in Europe, because they love to make fun of Americans. Just so you all know, they get a kick out of it. So here's my trivia question for this group. What country do you know that has amassed the most information on health and wellness and, body, mind, spirit? What country? has amassed the most information? I like that. I love the way he said that. Us, the U.S. And that's it. Bingo. There are some contenders, but the U.S. consistently has been shown to have amassed the most information on things related to health and wellness, body, mind, spirit connection. Just us in the U.S. All right, so that's the first trivia question. The second trivia question is this. What country is the most unfit, tired, exhausted, unhealthy? Us. Everybody got that right. So think about it. There's a disconnect there. U.S. has the most knowledge on this, but we continue to be the most unhealthy. Healthcare costs are rising so fast we can't even keep up with it. There are a lot of employers now that are becoming even more and more motivated because they recognize that when we are unfit, unhappy, and unhealthy, that impacts the bottom line, not to mention that we're not performing at the levels that we should be. So you're seeing a lot that's been happening. And do I have anybody in this group that's from the D.C. courts? Take a look at these folks. They're raising their hands. Yes. Hats off to the D.C. courts, because guess what? They have an initiative that they call WOW, and that stands for Working on Wellness. If you get a chance during your networking, please ask one of them about it, because they are taking steps to make sure that folks are engaged, happy, healthy, and fit, because they know how it impacts the work. So, U.S., most knowledge and information, most unfit, most unhealthy. Disconnect. Information by itself won't cut it. It's got to be married up with the compelling why. So what in the world is she talking about when she says the compelling why? The compelling why. Yeah, what am I talking about?
Like sort of a personal watershed moment that makes you sit back and say, hey, I better get on the program now.
A watershed moment. I love that. That makes you say, I got to get on the program now. Anybody else want to add to that? The compelling why. We all have them, though, don't we? Yeah. Sometimes you can think of them as life-altering moments, and it may not necessarily always be a life-altering moment. It might just be something that, for whatever reason, caused you to say, you know what? I think probably the most universal life-altering experience that I could think of that a lot of people would be able to relate to would be those terrorist attacks of September 11. Does everybody here remember where they were when they heard about the attacks? Yeah. Most people will tell you that they remember. I want you to think about that particular instance of what I would call the universal life-altering event. Now, there were some authors that were doing some really interesting research that ties into this. There's a book called Repacking Your Bags by Shapiro and Leiter. And before the terrorist attacks, they had identified what they said was the #1 deathly fear of adults. Anybody in here want to guess what that #1 deathly fear was, according to these authors? Fear of dying. They said that was the #1 deathly fear of adults, just the fear of dying. After September 11th, though, they said that it shifted, it changed. There's a new #1 fear in town, and they identified it as something else. Anybody want to guess what it is now, according to these authors? Fear of living a purposeless life. That points back to the compelling why. Think about it. Those things that shake us up, and I love the way you described it. It's that watershed moment that makes each and every one of us realize, whoa, I kind of fell off a little bit here. I got to get back on the program. I have to get back in shape. That one, for a lot of people, really shook us up a bit. We started thinking about things. There were people who were reconnecting to their faith. There were people who were making major decisions regarding things that they had put off. And that's universal. But if we get more personal, to go back to what she said, and again, I love that phrase that she used, for some of us, when it relates to self-care and knowing that we need to take better care of ourselves, it might be because, you know what, somebody that was near and dear to us suffered something. There's a chronic illness, or maybe there's a death. Maybe it's something that happened to ourselves that got our attention. Those are the moments where we go, okay, I got to get really serious. That's the compelling why. And then you have a reason for why you want to make change. So I've got this information. Now I've got this compelling reason as to why I want to make this change. For me, I've been blessed to have several things happen to me over the years that have caused me to step up my game a little bit. My mom's brainstem stroke was one of those events for me. As you know, stroke is caused by lifestyle choices. Your diet coupled with the sedentary lifestyle is a nice little mixing ground for things like stroke as well as some other things. When my mom had her stroke, that got my attention. And my husband will tell you, I started making decisions for my own game. And I've been pretty good so far. Not perfect, not trying to be perfect, but I was pretty good. But my mom's stroke got my attention. And I started making some changes as it relates to self-care, particularly as it relates to my diet. So yeah, the compelling why for me boils down to, I want to be around. I want to be around for my grandkids. I want to be around for my great-grandkids. And I don't want to be in a state of deterioration while I'm at it. My household will tell you that I talk a lot about my grandkids and be looking forward to being around for them. I want to be at their graduations from high school. I want to be at their weddings. I don't want my life to be cut short because of not taking care of me. And so I'll be the first one to tell you this. What you embark on as it relates to self-care, yes, it does help team performance, but think about what it also ultimately helps. But I also want you to think about what it ultimately costs us when we don't. When I don't take care of me, it impacts not just me, does it? Who else does it impact? It impacts everybody around me. I'm sure that it was never in my mother's plan that her 3 daughters' lives would be uprooted and we would all be, actually, I should tell people, my mom had the stroke, but to a very real degree, me and my 2 sisters, we had it too. My mom had the stroke, but we all experienced yes, and I'm sure there are people in the room that are shaking their heads that understand exactly what I'm saying. So the bottom line is, it's not just about me, it's about everybody that I touch and impact and influence, which is what you all said. When I don't take care of me, it impacts everybody. So as you sit in this session and look at these first 2 stages together, and I always spend more time on these first 2 because these first 2 are critical. And when you don't get these first 2 right, you stand the chance of starting something and then you'll stop. And then you won't do it. If you get these two, I promise you, you will see the tipping point for some lasting, sustainable change. How many people in here have watched that show, The Biggest Loser? Have you seen that before? Okay, a couple of hands going up. I've actually never watched an entire episode of The Biggest Loser, but I've watched bits and pieces. And I actually saw an interview that they had with somebody after he had won. And I don't know how long ago that was, but this was a guy who had won. But for me, I'm always fascinated to hear their responses when people want to know. Because you notice, when people do something that monumental, like what people on The Biggest Loser do, people want to know, don't they? They're putting the microphones up in your face and they want to know, wow, how'd you do this? How did you stay with it? How in the world were you able to accomplish this? What have been the responses of the people who have been on The Biggest Loser when they've been asked, why did you do it? How did you do it? What do they say? What do they talk about? They talk about their families, don't they? Yeah. They don't say, well, I was able to do it because I had these jeans. They were my favorite jeans. That's how I did it. I hung those jeans up and I looked at them every day. They don't talk about those jeans, do they? No, they talk about family. They don't also say, you know what? The reason why I was able to do it is because, I had my class reunion coming up and I wanted to show up and look cute. Do they say that? No, they don't say that. They talk about their what? Their families. Now, our families are close to the fold. Those are the individuals in our lives that we probably feel like we most impact and influence because there's a bond there. But when you start talking about impacting and influence, we know that there's a ripple effect and it goes beyond family in terms of the people that we touch. But I would ask you to be thinking about, again, what is going to be your compelling why? Why did you even come to this session? You saw what it was called. It's about taking care of you. Why did you even come? What's going to be your compelling why? What is that going to be? I'm pushing. I'm pushing. What is that going to be? Every single one of us has to locate what that is. Okay? So I'm going to unveil, I don't know where I put my clicker. I want to unveil the other stages because you've now seen the first two. Any guesses now as to what the last two will be? Now I'll give you another new opportunity to guess, right? Okay, where are we now? Where are we now? Yes.
You gotta have a plan of action.
All right, she says you got to have a plan of action. Preparation. So another hand going up. Is that your hand, Crystal, or you? Oh, okay. Anybody else? Where's the person who said habit before? Somebody said habit to me early on. Okay. Habit will show up on the list. Habit will show up. But in a lot of ways, having the plan and the training and all that, that's going to show up too, but it's going to look a little bit different than what you expected. So I'm going to go ahead and unveil them together. Self-discipline. Self-discipline is what's going to be needed. And because we usually are very limited in our self-discipline capacity, we got to have a plan. Yeah, how many people in here know how hard it is to start something new that you've not done before, or maybe you've tried before and haven't been successful? How many people know about that? Yeah. How many people are just every day that you wake up in the morning, you say, whoa, I'm just looking forward to tapping into all of my willpower to do all the things that I can do? How many people wake up and say that? No. Do you wake up and say that? How many people in here have a lot of self-discipline? You got a lot of it. Okay. All right. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you. All right. I got one person that raised her hand to say that she has a lot of self-discipline. And what I'm thinking is you probably have a very, very good habit structure in place that gives the illusion of self-discipline. And we'll talk. We'll talk. So think about this whole notion of self-discipline. Basically, as human beings, research tells us that we just don't have a lot of it. That's what they say. They say we don't have a lot. So I don't know if you think that's true or not for you. So I would just ask you to consider this. If we all had a lot of self-discipline, we'd be able to do everything we know we need to do or want to do if we had a lot of self-discipline. That's how I look at it. I, for one, will tell you I don't have a lot of self-discipline, and I can't depend on self-discipline to get things done or to do the things that I know I need to do. I can't depend on it because I don't have a lot of it. Now that habit piece, and again, somebody mentioned habit earlier on, that habit is what's going to be key. Because here's the pattern I want you to think about. I've got some awareness now around something. And now I know a real compelling reason why I want to take action on this information. And because the reason is so compelling to me, that is going to motivate me to tap into my self-discipline. Because, you know, we get real stingy about that self-discipline. We don't necessarily want to tap into that unless we know it's going to be worth it. So you got to be really motivated to use that self-discipline. But when I use my self-discipline to do something new or to start something new, if I do it over and over again, what's it going to become? A habit. And let me ask you something. When it comes to habits, do you wake up in the morning and pull out your habit to-do list? Does anybody have one of those? Because what's the nice thing about habits? Yes, they're automatic. You do it anyway. You don't even think about it. It's a part of who you are and what you do. You don't have to think about it. So that's going to be the 4 stages. All four of those coming together. All right? You still with me? All right. You still with me? All right. So that, especially for those of you that were not in the opening session, that was a big part of the foundational information that I gave in the morning session. A lot of it was meant to point to brain health, but it really is about how I perform. It drives my health. It drives my happiness. It drives my sense of balance. It points to things like resilience, perseverance, strength. All of those things would tie back to what we talked about this morning. And we cover what I call 6 strategies for fueling the self. This is where you're going to come in, because I talked about it in a very general way, probably gave you some information that you hadn't thought about before, especially when it relates to this right here in cognitive function. We need to make this real. We need to make this actionable. And I've got a room here that's full of people with wisdom, knowledge, and experience already. So this is where we get to play around and have some fun. Our room is set up in such a way that I'm trying to see how group think is going to work, because I'm actually going to need 6 different groups working together. So let me set this down for a second. Let me sit this down. I've got, all right, we'll kind of play around with it. All right, so I'll have 6 groups, and obviously those 6 groups will correspond. I should have numbered those, but will correspond with those fueling strategies up here. You folks over here, you're my fueling the body folks. So I'll give the assignments first, and then I'll tell you what I'd like for you to do. You're my fueling the body folks, all right? You all don't look too happy. Okay. I have to tease you. I'm just teasing you. Okay. You all, yeah, these 3 rows, you're going to be my get moving. This is not your excuse to get up and leave the room, though, okay? You're my get moving folks. All right. From here on back, you all are my reducing the bad stress folks, because you all are bad, okay? All right, you all are bad. All right, whoo, I got a big group back here, so let me see what I'll do. This row, from this row on back, you all are my rest and recovery group. And so to your point, this is not nap time for this part of the room, but you all are my rest and recover folks. And then I've got, let's keep you all together. All right, you're going to be my joyful folks. All right, you're the seeking out joy folks. And then last but not least, you all are my connection posse, the connecting with others folks. So obviously this is going to involve some moving, in the sense that you may have to turn your chairs. Some of you may decide to stand and get closer and huddle, because it's designed for you all to just kind of talk and kind of brainstorm. Here's what I'm looking for. And I'm hoping that I have at least one person in each group that was in the morning session. Is that the case? Do I have at least one person in each group that was in the morning session? Good. You all, please identify yourselves to the rest of the group, because you all will be my gurus from this morning. So you all are the gurus. You can help provide or fill in some blanks as you're talking and working. Here's what I'm looking for you to do. And we're already at 10:40. I'm thinking we'll start you out with 10 minutes, and then I'll check in with you and see how it is. My clock says 10:40. We will come back together at 10:50. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to brainstorm some practical, concrete strategies that you can integrate into your day as it relates to those strategies. Things that would support those strategies. What are some things that you could actually do? I'm looking around after I'm giving my assignment. Some of you look like, okay, I can do that. Some of you are looking at me going, I don't know, can I do that? All right. I'm looking around. And I don't want to give you too much instruction, because I don't want you to feel like you're in a box. This is brainstorming. Some ideas. All right, go ahead and get with your groups, and we'll come back together in 10 minutes. All right. Thank you. You don't mind me teasing you, do you? Okay. Actually, I am. Why don't we do that? I'm trying to think of a fun way to do it. Because I actually want them to have the microphone, okay? So, one person, spokesperson. And then just have them to give me some of their ideas. Okay. How's it going so far? Okay. Okay. Because you know I'm winging it, right? This is the one that I was the least prepared for. So I'm winging it, which is kind of what I do sometimes. Can you tell? Okay, good. Because what I wanted to do was to have everybody go up to the flip charts, but they only brought me one.
Oh, I see.
Gosh. Yeah. So then I had to make that mental adjustment. It's okay, I got to do something different, but I'm having to do that all the time. I'm going to go around and eavesdrop. Okay? All right. Oh, I like this group. Oh, I like this group. Oh, yeah. make it competitive. Okay, about 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. Okay, let's start coming back together as a full group. Woo. Yeah. Start coming back together as a full group. All right. All right. All right. All right. We're coming back together as a full group. And notice, I have a new prop now. So what do you think that means? After talking with each other for 10 minutes, guess who gets to talk? Yeah. So here's what I'd like for you to do. I want you to think about the brainstorming session and conversation that you just had with your group. If you had to designate somebody from your group as the spokesperson who'd be willing to come up here and share what you all came up with, let me have you go ahead and look at that process, do that process now. Now, some of you are really funny. You just turn and go. Go ahead and designate. Hopefully you'll have somebody that'll volunteer. Okay? Hopefully. Yeah? Oh. Looks like we got a little tension going on back here. So you know what you could tell them, because if you were the one that was responsible for capturing everything, you know, that was a big responsibility. So you know what? And I like to be able to reward that performance. Why don't you designate somebody from your team to be the spokesperson, just based on the conversations, you know, you designate. So when it's time, that person will join me. Because we're going to go systematically down my list here. All right? Because I want to give you an opportunity to talk. And you know what? The best ideas are going to be generated by you. There are some things that we share in common because of the human experience, but nobody knows your work environment better than you. And then hopefully we'll also have a lot of personal things coming out, because it's supposed to be both work and personal, but you all know it way better than I do. You will know what can work, what you might have to tweak and tailor for your particular environment, but the best ideas will come from you. So systematically going down the list, in terms of those fueling strategies, what's the first one? Okay, you all are not saying it like you mean it. The body. And for those of you that were in that session, do you remember the motion that went with that? Whoa, yes. Yes. So again, I'm going for that 10%. If you only hold on to 10%, and that's the 10% that you act on, that's a win. I had a couple of people, but I noticed my girl right here. When I said that, she went right here. So for those of you that were not in the morning session, I'm hoping, coming based on what group you were working with, or even just in general, everything we tied back to the brain. So I'm hoping that you have a greater appreciation for how these things contribute to this. So that was one of the signals from last session. To fuel and nourish the body is to fuel and nourish this. All right. So with that being said, where's my fuel the body speaker? Let's show some love. Okay. And you all may not have noticed this, but I was able to see, the way we're seated, we can't always see because you're facing forward. When he raised his hand to identify himself, he actually took a deep breath. I noticed he raised his hand and he went, I'm going to assume that was a part of the relaxation strategy, sort of like those two brains we saw side by side.
There's actually, in preparation to make a confession,
Ooh.
my grandmother's magic bar that I bought over at Starbucks.
Ah.
That's part of my fuel the body.
All right. Well, you know what? I like the way you think. And what's your name? All right, Matthew. I don't know if this will satisfy, but I've got some nice little dried fruit and nuts in here if you're wanting to fuel up before you speak.
Oh, that's the key word. That's how we started our presentation. We said, how do we think about food? Is it a comfort or is it fuel?
Ah.
So I'd like to have some of that fuel.
Yes, indeed. You are such a sweetheart. So, Matthew, let me give you a moment to kind of fuel up. Yes, indeedy. So we're going to be using the microphone, and I wanted to just make sure that we get an opportunity to have this session be a big part of talking and sharing. And you know what? The ideas that people come up with, please feel free to take notes and think about, you know what? That's something that I could do. That's something that I want to do. So I'm going to hand that over to you.
How much time should I take?
You know what? Let's just say this. If I get to the, you must have a lot to say, my friend. He's like, how much time should I take? If we get to the point where we feel like we got to dedicate some space for what needs to happen, in this session, I'll look at you and I'll do this. Or I could give you that spousal eye. See, I'm a wife. You know what he said? I've seen that. So I might give you the eye or I might do this. All right. What did your group talk about? What are some ideas?
Well, it all started back in 1971. We had a very enthusiastic group leader. Megan ran over to the front of our group and said, okay, everybody get over here. I've got it down. My husband's a nutritionist. We can do this. And so she really laid out a great plan for us. And I'm kind of paraphrasing, but she explained that it all starts here. How do we fuel our body? Well, we have to fuel our mind. We have to really think. We don't plan, we plan to fail. And so planning our days help us to have good weeks and good months and help us to have balanced nutrition. Going from the notes, we talked about having well-balanced meals. Megan happens to be a vegetarian. And she said, but that's a preference that I have. It's mostly for me about the positives. Looking for good things to introduce into my diet to give me energy, to think clearly, to perform at my highest level. And so she gave a great example of how she considers food, rather than being a comfort, consolation for all the bad things that happen to me in the day, it's a fuel to help me to do my best, to feel my best throughout the day. So planning, taking interest in looking at nutritional labels. Once again, dealing with it as a positive, not saying, okay, I only got 13 calories left for the day. But actually seeking out nutrient-dense foods and things that taste good. I gave an example. I was going into the FBI and I had to make weight for the FBI. I had to get down to 215 pounds. And therefore I had to lose 96 pounds, which I did. Then I gained back 97 pounds, and here I am. I'm back on the trail. It took me the longest time to get to where I go to the store, buy groceries, and actually then it took a long time to get those groceries prepared and in my bag to the office. And then once I got to the office, they'd sit in my bag, and I'd have warm cheese sticks and wilted lettuce and things like that. At the end of the day, I still was at these restaurants. I'm not sure what it took, probably just several attempts, and maybe an accident happened one day, and I actually had a full day where I ate small, healthy foods throughout the day, and I felt great. I can honestly say by the second day, I felt a difference. And so now I've been doing this for over 2 weeks. I think I've lost a few pounds. But the greatest thing is going back to that first step, how do I feel? So my focus is on how I feel. I'm not even weighing myself. That's just one identity a person has. What's the most important thing? How we feel. I think that's what we all seek. We all seek happiness, we avoid pain. So here we are. I think that is our presentation.
Very nicely done. I'll give you some now. Sweetheart. Nice job. Nice job. Yes. Is it okay if I give you this?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
There's a really great website. I don't know if I can talk about it.
Please. Yeah.
It's called wordsofwisdomliving.com. And it's written by a man named KeynoteFollowup. And what he does is he introduces one healthy lifestyle change a week. So by the end of the year, you introduce 52 changes into your life. And he gives a lot of healthy recipes. And we don't buy store-bought cereal anymore. So we make our own recipe that we got on his website. And he talks about healthy breads to eat instead. And then looking at percentages of sugars and fibers and things like that in the food that are healthy changes we make. So if you want to, I look at it every day. So if you want to, I'll encourage you. What was it again? Wordsofwisdomliving.com.
All right. And no apologies necessary. That's what we're here for. We're sharing ideas, we're sharing some insights, and sharing some resources. All right, so I know folks are writing that down. And while you're writing that down, I will say something. One of the things that this group talked about was the planning piece. To fuel the body, we know it, right? Everybody knew that that's what we're supposed to be doing. Our bodies require nutrients. But the biggest challenge has been, you know what? We go for what's convenient, or we're in a situation where we don't have access to nutrient-rich foods. So that's going to require something of me, i.e. the planning that they spoke about. The planning. That is going to be critical. And again, remembering why it's so vital for us to fuel the body. So, I want to tell you, my husband and I, before we came on this trip, he went to the store and he bought snacks for us to bring with us so that we would have them, because I can't always know what's going to be where I'm traveling. I have to carry my own, and typically I'm carrying my own snacks so that I have something. I don't ever want to be in a situation where I'm going hungry for hours and hours and hours without fueling my body or my brain. I got to have something. So you got to plan for that, right? All right. Any thoughts on that first strategy? Nicely done, first team. All right, nicely done. All right, what about get moving? Get moving, get moving. Yeah, that's you, right? All right, and your name? Lori. All right, so. Woo, she's got her own snacks too.
And I had to divide it up into how much a portion should be.
Woo.
Give me that whole bag.
You're going to eat the whole bag. So see, she's saying she doesn't have a lot of self-discipline. She would eat the whole bag.
To create.
So you have to create it.
I brought a couple of different baggies and divided them up.
Okay.
For Get Moving, what we thought about was what are the simplest things that we can integrate into our daily lives. If it's not simple and you have to think about it, it's not a habit.
There you go.
And then you kind of let it go after a few weeks. After this morning's session, we decided we should take the stairs, not the escalator. We should start further away from all entrances. Not close.
Not close.
One of the ideas I thought was really fun, use the bathroom on a different floor of your building, so you have to take the stairs. That was pretty creative. Walk to lunch area, don't eat at your desk, because then you'll eat the whole bag of goodies instead of what you're supposed to eat. Get up and talk to someone instead of emailing them or IMing them. We were down on email for 2 weeks at my office. We thought we were going to go crazy, but we found we were having a lot more interaction face to face.
Did you hear that?
And that was exciting.
Wow.
Take or make an exercise class. One of our group members actually said that they created a class by putting sand in some bottles and doing some aerobic-like movements during lunch hour.
Okay. All right.
Exercise before or after work, if you like to do that. Challenging the others Challenge others in the office to the Biggest Loser contest, and some of our members had that too. Challenge each other with pedometers, walk whoever's going to walk the most during the day. Take public transportation, so you have to drive to wherever it is, park the car, walk, get on the bus or the train, and then walk to your office. Ride your bike to work. Some people do that in Columbus, Ohio, where I'm from.
Okay.
And that works as long as it's not raining all the time. And pace while you're on a conference call. I do that on the cell phone quite a bit, so I thought that was pretty good.
Okay.
Pace while you're on a call. Take a walk at lunch. Some of us are near parks, some of us walk in the parking garage. Stretch at your desk. Someone suggested downloading Mindful Clock, and it would remind you to get up and to stretch every so many minutes.
There you go. There you go. Nicely done. All right. Get moving. So let's pay tribute to that group for their ideas by actually standing up right now. Let's stand up, get off of your big butt. And I say that out of all respect because the butt is the biggest muscle in the body. Okay? Out of all respect. And so as you stand, let me have you to do a couple of neck rolls. All right? Please do not let any cracking noises alarm you. All right? Once you go in one direction, reverse and go in the other direction. Okay. Let's do some shoulder lifts. Yeah. And let's pretend that we're actually walking. Let's walk in place. Because we're walking, right? All right. Now, as I'm telling you this last little tip, I want you to continue moving. All right? So keep walking. So something very interesting that this group brought up in terms of ideas. Multi-level offices where you can actually do things on separate floors. That's a huge one to help to integrate movement into the day. What about setting your printer to print on a different floor? Yeah. What about that? Yeah. Now, and most people in this room, I'm sure you flew to Vegas for this conference, right? So even though this is designed around self-care and what you can do for you, here's a little trick that I learned from a nutritionist. She says that when you fly, drink a lot of water and get a window seat. So that way you get movement and 2 other people get movement too. Yeah. All right. You may be seated. Yeah. All right. All right. You all are bad, right? What about my bad stress folks? Coming up? All right. And your name?
I'm Sharon.
Sharon. All right. Sharon, what did your group come up with?
Oh, we have a very wise group. Lots of good examples here. One was conscious deep breathing. Eating right, healthy diet. We segued into the other groups as well. Exercise and stretching, getting those long stretches and even at work. Taking the steps in a large building, especially instead of other methods of movement. Venting, to a friend or coworker, and then moving on, not doing the downward spiral of venting. Getting sleep and rest. Doing things that honor your body and your purpose. Having a positive mindset. Humor. I hope that everybody has that at their work and in their lives. Getting massage or body scrubs. Yay! Good answer. Creating time for yourself. Pedicures. I like it. It's cheering. Good answer. Aromatherapy or candles. From the lone man in the group came the answer of retail therapy.
Excuse me, sir, was that you who said retail therapy? After this session is over, can you talk to my husband? He's sitting right over there. That retail therapy, I want to just get you two together. Okay, yes, connecting with others. So yeah, nice.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, no, nice.
Yoga, after work, not during work. A glass of wine or margarita. We called it unwinding.
Unwinding.
Friends, socializing. This was a great one. Somebody mentioned pets, having pets to help you de-stress, and dancing.
Dancing, which is what I mentioned in the, yeah. All right, very nicely done. And so just to reiterate something, the idea around stress is not to completely eliminate it, because in a lot of ways stress is good because it leads to growth. The idea is to balance the stress with other things that we're doing, right? I.e. the list that they generated, as well as some of the things that you may already have going on, but maybe just not to the degree where it's really balancing the stress. Because the bottom line is the work is not going to go away. Those kids, especially if you got teenagers, that's not going to go away anytime. So it's not about eliminating, it's about balancing. Balancing, yes. All right, so we have to keep moving a little quickly, and I do apologize for that, just for the sake of time, and we've got a lot more to get to. Where is my rest and recovery folk? All right. All right. So notice they just kind of did this to make way. I know. And what's your name? Terry. All right. All right. Yes. All right, my dear. Thank you.
Okay, first we decided that numbers 1, 2, and 3 on that list up there were going to help us with our number 4, which is rest and recovery. So the first thing, of course, is everybody knows you need 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. So we go from there to a ritual to relax and unwind. And that could be anything from, like you said earlier, drinking a glass of wine, or just meditating or praying, or whatever you do to unwind. Third, we said make sure you take a break during the day. We decided that it wasn't just at night that you needed to prepare yourself in order to be able to rest and recover during the night. So it's like an all-day process. So you need to make sure that you do things during the day to help you be able to rest at night. So that means maybe taking your break during the day, or going for your walk, or whatever helps you to kind of unwind. Exercise, everybody talks about exercise. It's very important. One thing that I still need to learn how to do more of, but exercise is also going to help you rest at night. Get away from your desk. Mentally take a break. And I had the pleasure of being in the group from DC, and one of the things that they do, what they talked about, is taking power naps and meditating. And they also offer Zumba and yoga classes during lunchtime, so that was pretty cool, I thought. Hydrating your body, that kind of goes along with making sure that your body is in good shape to be able to lay down and rest at night. And make time to decompress. Establish about an hour before you go to bed to do the things that will help you unwind. And finally, you decide what alternatives that you need to decide to do to help yourself during the day to make you rest at night.
Okay, very nice. Thank you. All right. For those of you that are interested in the power nap, something that I do need to tell you, 20 minutes or less to get the benefit of a power nap. Anything longer than that, you'll end up feeling worse than when you started. 20 minutes or less for the power nap. All right, very nicely done. And again, we're going to keep moving. A lot of great ideas there. What about my joyful folk? Did you designate somebody? He's signaling me. He's like, come on. Yes.
I get so much joy out of telling my boss, Ken, that you will be doing this presentation.
Good. Okay.
Oh, that's good. Oh, see, that was some laughter. How you feeling? Yeah.
Hey. Wait a minute. No, I think I've got it. I can do this. Okay. We would begin with learn to laugh by yourself, which seems to be working right now. And we had another category that we had lots of examples for, and the category is seek out what makes you happy. So examples of that would be shopping, lunch with a good friend, and trying new things. Do things that we decide what things we like to do and actually do them. Don't be afraid to face your fears. Remember to smile for no reason. Smile at others and do something silly. And we had other examples of things that we like to do, which is giving back, helping others, and eating something good for ourselves.
All right. Woo! Thank you. Yeah. There was also something that we used to do when we were in school that became a tradition, and a lot of you may be familiar with it. Those photo op opportunities where they take a group photo and everybody would be serious, and then they tell everybody to put on their silly, crazy face and then have the picture taken. So guess what? I want you all to pretend that I'm standing up here with this huge camera. I want you to forget for a moment you're a serious professional adult here. I want you to forget that for a moment. I want you to be totally uninhibited. If somebody were taking your picture and said, put on your silly face, what kind of face would you give? I'm going to do mine too. On the count of 3, I want to see your best, silly, goofy face. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. All right. Now, some of you will walk out of this session and go, I can't believe she had us do that. But you know what? You smiled, didn't you? So guess what? I just got your body to release some hormones that are for your good. And typically when our body releases any kind of relaxation or feel-good hormones, you feel the effects long after the activity is over. Just like with exercise. Even hours after exercise is over, you still feel the good effects. So later on today, when folks at the conference who didn't come to my session, if they're wondering why you're walking around and you just smiling and seem so happy, you just tell them, you should have come to that session over here. That was All right. So I've got my connecting with others folks. And that would be spokesperson Audrey. Spokesperson Audrey.
Thank you. We came up with several things. Some of them were inside of work, some of them were outside of work.
Okay.
One individual brought up a heads-up meeting where they meet for 5 to 10 minutes. It's not sit down. Everybody stands because if you sit down, you have a tendency to stay.
That's a good strategy.
Lunches and clubs, like a book club, reading, talking it over at lunch, or an exercise group at lunch, walking at lunch. Making a point of getting to know people that you talk to on the phone. One young lady, when she talks to somebody, if she doesn't know them, she makes a point of going down and meeting them, or upstairs, downstairs, wherever they might be.
Okay.
Fellowship. Now, this was kind of outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
I have a group of ladies that we get together once a month. We play a game, we make a meal, and we just talk. It's just a time to connect.
To connect.
Yes. And then also, one individual brought up the fact that NACM has gone mobile. That's a way that we connect to other people in our group. And then that last but not least, but calling family and friends that you mentioned.
There you go. How many people were in the last session you actually took me up on that challenge and you actually contacted somebody and said, I'm thinking of you? Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yes. All right. So this right here really is a good foundation for what we call self-care. And again, I cannot stress the benefits to everything and everybody around you when you make sure that you get this stuff. But now it's going to be all about you. It's time for the compelling why. The compelling why is not your opportunity to sit with those folks and ask them, well, what do you think my why should be? No, this is now all about you. This is now personal. So I'm hoping that you have a sheet of paper with you because I am going to be asking you to write down something. And when you write down something so that you can see it, it becomes real. I've got a sentence up on the screen now that I've taken the liberty to start for you. Your task is to fill in the blank. So I want to say it out loud to just underscore the seriousness of what I'm asking you to do. I want to take better care of myself so that I can, you fill in the blank with your compelling why. Why would you want to do any of what we've just talked about in here or any of what we talked about over in the other room? Write down your compelling why. And for some of us, we may have multiple whys. And that's okay as long as each and every one of them is compelling for you. So go ahead and take a moment to do that. What's your why? Please just kind of check in with me so that I know where you are. When you've written down a compelling why or whys, if you could look back up and make eye contact with me so that I'll know we can continue on as a group. I want to take better care of myself so that I can. What would that be for you?
Live my life to the fullest.
Live my life to the fullest so that I can see my son grow up. So that I can make a meaningful contribution. So that I can stay connected to my husband. So that I can age pain-free. So that I can accomplish all the goals that I have set for myself. So that I can remain healthy and disease-free. So that I can one day be a healthy mother. So that I can
teach and help other family members or friends.
Teach and help other family members and friends. We've got a room full of compelling whys. When you've got one that goes deep, it gives you staying power. And the reason why we need so much staying power is because we know that there's a lot of pressure out there to steer us in the wrong direction so that we lose the focus of why it is so important to take care of self. Up here on this flip chart, I've actually taken the liberty to write one word: consequences. Because we need to get real. You can walk out of here with some great ideas and some great strategies. You walk out of here knowing that you've written down your compelling why. You see it, it's real. I want you to say it out loud to at least one other person while it's fresh. Call up a family member, spouse, partner, son, daughter. Tell somebody what your compelling why is. Every time you say it out loud, it actually cements it for you. For me, a big part of it is I want to be around for my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids, and I don't want to be in a state of deterioration. I want to leave a legacy. I want to be able to live life to the full, and I can't do that if I'm not taking care of my temple, if I'm not taking care of me. So here's what happens when you get real. When you sit back and say, these are the consequences if I don't take better care of myself. My mother would be what I call the extreme example of that because of lifestyle choices. This list that we generate, it can be as extreme as you want it. What I'm interested in is what are the short-term and or long-term consequences of you not taking care of yourself? Throw them out at me. I'm going to chart them. Whoa, you all went straight to double jeopardy. Okay, you all went straight to double jeopardy. Okay, course over. We're done. Okay, and, you know, true to my word, I'll write that one up there. You went straight to double jeopardy or final jeopardy, right? Illness, okay? And you're going to have to shout. I won't do the microphone because we'll just shout out. Sore knees. Okay. Hospitalization. Sadness. Assisted living. Restrictions. Pills. Medication, pills. Wow. All right. So, money, the cost. Okay. All right. So you get the idea, right? This is also about seeing it, making it more real. We kind of know these things, but we kind of put them off and you think, you know, I don't really have to think about that. You know what? Everything must be okay. Things must be working. I can still do this. My family still recognizes me and my life must be working. When it's not immediate in our face, it's easy to kind of put it over here. I want it to be in your face. The statistics tell us this should be in our face. But when you even think about what you get when you do this, that's the payoff. That's the payoff. This is the wake-up call. So, with that being said, and again, I'm looking at my clock. I'm very respectful. So we're getting close to lunchtime too, aren't we? All right. So, there's that self-discipline now, right? So you've got some information, you've got some ideas, you've got a compelling why. Now the self-discipline comes into play. Self-discipline, again, just to kind of take us back, it is you being motivated to do something that might be hard. Look at your compelling why, or your whys, based on what you wrote down. I want you to look at it for a moment. Is what you wrote down strong enough and compelling enough for you to do something new or do something different? If you've got one like that, then you're on to something. If yours, in looking at it, you say, oh, I don't know if this is going to be enough to get me up so that I'll do X, Y, and Z, or I don't know, this is going to be quite enough. I would ask you to keep working on it and go deeper. Latch on to one that is going to create such a force, such a drive for you, you can't help but take better care of yourself. And then guess what? Whether you realize it or not, you've got people around you, professional and personal, that are rooting for you. Because every single person in this room knows that we are better when we take care of ourselves. We want ourselves to be better, but we want the people around us to benefit, and we also want them to be better. So what about just creating that culture of just wellness? And to create that kind of a culture, it always just starts with one person, doesn't it? It starts with one person. It starts with me. So that's where the self-discipline is going to come in. So that would be my call for you. If yours is strong enough where you're sitting here right now saying, I'm going to tap into my self-discipline. I am. I'm going to tap into it. And I'm not going to ask you to walk out of this room and have a whole entire menu of stuff to do. My challenge for you is just thinking about one thing that you want to do that will become a habit. One thing. Because I'm a big proponent of it may be that one thing that you do and get off the ground and form a habit around that will continue to motivate you, that maybe later you'll pick out something else. To your point, by the end of the year, you may have a series of things now that have become a habit. Start small. Take it one step at a time. That compelling why is your vision. Your vision is over here. You've got that vision in the guise of your compelling why. That habit, that one thing that you're going to do new and differently, that's your one step that takes you closer to that vision. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Now, You've heard a lot of information. Again, in this session, if you attended the other one, you got a lot of information. You probably have been just jotting down notes. I want you to find another spot where you can write something else down. And this is now me standing up in front of the room, a woman asking for commitment. And thinking about those 6 strategies around self-care, thinking about what you know about yourself, thinking about what for you would be something that you can get the most mileage out of right now, where you can see some results right away. What would be the one new habit you would take on? Write down something that you're going to use your willpower to start and then do it over and over again so that it becomes a habit. Write down one thing. Make sure that it is practical for you, but also make sure it's something that you can track and measure so that you can monitor it. Please do not write down something like, be nice to people. Write down an actual behavior or an action. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm going for. One behavior or action that you will commit to. Just one. Just one. Just one. As you write it down, please look at it and know that it is a commitment that you are making, because you've got a compelling why. We got an opportunity to take a sampling of some of those compelling whys in the room. And if we had the opportunity, I will tell you, I'll be the first person to tell you that I would listen to every single compelling why in here, because even listening to them, doesn't that also kind of fill you up? You get motivated and inspired just by hearing what people's compelling whys are. Wow. One thing that you'll do differently. As we wrap up our session, I have a couple more things I need to tell you, because it needs to be about support and accountability. Let me give you the name of a website that I actually have been referring folks to. I'm working with another consulting company to actually develop a tool that will be available on my website. That's currently in development. But until that happens, I want to be able to send you someplace so that you can experience what an accountability and support tracking tool could be for you and your habit. It's called joesgoals.com. And I'll write it down in big letters up here. joesgoals.com. And I'll use the blue marker. So Joe's Goals, especially for those of us who are digital. So this is like a digital way to really track and measure and go on and get that support. It gives you a lot of creative ways to start making this formal, so that it is something that you will do and stick with, especially when you're in the habit formation phase. Because how many people in here know that when you're starting to form a habit around something, in the beginning, it's going to be tough? Yeah, it's going to be tough. And I will be the first person up here to raise my hand around that. To actually get a habit off the ground, it is tough. You may experience some setbacks. But this right here will help, but also the support of people around you. Do not walk out of this session and let what happened be a secret. Tell somebody. Tell somebody what you're doing. Tell somebody. So, for example, if you wrote down something around, I'm going to make sure that I commit to moving every couple of hours at work. And I'm just throwing something out there. If you wrote that down as a habit, and if you told friends at work what you're doing, what's going to happen? They're going to be asking you about it. The friends that you have at work are going to be thinking about, you've been sitting down for a while. They're going to ask you, so how's that whole moving thing going? When was the last time you got up? After a while, it's going to occur to you, based on that habit that you said you were going to do, I'm going to have to do this now. I'm going to have to really just get moving, because too many people know, and they'll be asking you about it, right? So get the support. Get the support. This will give you support and accountability and a way to track it. The people around you will give you the support. Remember, what was the 6th thing on the list? Number 6? Connecting with others. Yes. All right. We're done. That's a wrap. Yeah. All right. All right. I'm 2 minutes over. You coming to kill me? No.
wonderful presentation. Please take a moment to fill out the evaluation
Oh, I'm
forms.
sorry, I forgot.
There are some up here. I forgot to announce it earlier. So if you don't have some in back, they're all
Straight
up
across
here.
the front. All right.
Thank you.
So Matthew, you want some more snacks before you leave?
Wow, she's trying to buy his evaluation.
And no, and where's that my friend who's supposed to be talking to my husband about that retail therapy?
He left.
He left?
He ran out. Just leave them on the table. I'll collect them, or you can hand them.
Like my blood glucose. I'm like, I got to bring my own. Yeah.
Need one?
Yes.